LA Times. He says, yes, protests often are used as an excuse for some to take advantage, just as when fans celebrating a hometown sports team championship burn cars and destroy storefronts. I don't want to see stores looted or even buildings burned, but African Americans have been living in a burning building for many years, choking on the smoke as the flames burn closer and closer. Racism in America is like dust in the air. It seems invisible, even if you're choking on it, until you let the sun in. Joining us now is award-winning author and radio show host Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. He is the author of Tears We Cannot Stop, which addresses the plague of police brutality against Black Americans. I want to start here, Dr. Dyson, give you the floor. What is your reaction to the latest events in our country?
Well, thanks, first of all, for having me on one of my favorite shows on television. You know, we are living in devastating circumstances. There's no question that we say time and again after an incident like this occurs that we are now having revealed to us the underlying conditions, the pre-existing conditions of racial bigotry, of prejudice, of hate, of the way in which Black people are dehumanized, the refusal to recognize our humanity, much less our social equality. When you look at what happens on a daily basis, and you can take a kind of, if you will, extract of living tissue, a biopsy of the last couple of weeks. We see the situation in Central Park where a white woman threatens to call the police on a Black man, weaponizing the very threat of the police against Black men, acknowledging that that is a problem. We see Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, who is jogging down the street and hunted down like an animal. And then we see George Floyd in Minnesota laying prostrate on the ground, pinned beneath the knee of a police officer, a law enforcement official sworn an oath to protect and serve us. And yet Mr. Floyd begging for help, for relief, asking, calling upon his mother, sacred in Black communities, knowing that he's dying. His mother is already an ancestor and he shall soon join her. This is the explicit articulation of such fundamental disrespect for the life of Black people. And so what we see now spilling over into society with rebellions and uprisings and lootings and the like, that pales in comparison, as Mr. Jabbar has said, to the viciousness that Black people are subject to daily. And when you think on top of that about, you know, white brothers and sisters loot as well, not simply in the streets, but Black people face looting in corporate America. Black people face looting in offices, what Roger Wilkins called quiet riots. And so the disavowal of Black humanity, the disrespect that we continually confront, is something that has to be confronted. Is there something different about George Floyd that now in Germany and in London people are identifying? Perhaps so. But until we confront this as a fundamental issue of American democracy, we shall not solve this problem in a way that will prevent what is going on now from going on again.
Dr. Dyson, my brother, always appreciate you. You know that. Happy to have you on the show. Let's stick to that point right there in terms of in terms of confronting the issue. You know what I always say when you and I talk. If Black folks, if white folks catch a cold, Black folks catch pneumonia. In other words, it's always worse for us than it is for them. Although we're seeing riots take place, and it's not just confined to the Black community rioting in its own community. Now we see Black and white protesters, Black and white rioters. There is a difference between protesters and rioters, but we see both ethnic groups involved in both categories. Thinking about what I just said in terms of how much worse it is for Black people than it is for white people, in light of the things that are transpiring, how do you see all of this panning out for Black folks if these riots continue, in your estimation?
Well, absolutely right. Your analysis, as always, is acute and incisive and accurate. I think the larger problem, however, is what will happen if we don't listen to the people who have been disadvantaged and who have been hurt and in pain. Now, we know that what we see in the street, Martin Luther King Jr. said a riot is the language of the unheard. It is the voice of the unheard. So the bigger issue here is what do we do so this won't happen again? And you know as well as I know, which is why black people are out in the streets if they spot some of their white brothers and sisters who want to be their allies from engaging in, unlawful behavior. The reason they're trying to stop them is that they know that white privilege will even cut through to who gets arrested and who's not, who will be demonized and stigmatized and bear the burden of that taboo and who won't. So even white privilege at the level of distinguishing a white woman walking through a store taking things is seen as an employee who's out of work, and black people are seen as looters. So we know the very definitional level of who's a looter and who's a rioter and who's a rebellion, who's engaging in social rebellion is racially driven. However, the deeper question here is this, that we can't keep having this occur where on the everyday, when black people are speaking softly, when black people are speaking intelligently, when black people are speaking vociferously against these issues, they're not heard. The tragedy is, my brother Stephen A., they often don't hear us until the negativity comes out here. Here's the false dichotomy. Well, this is a distraction. We can't hear your claws and claims if you are rioting. No. You refused to listen to us before the rioting, before the rebellion, before the cities burned, before the self-destruction, before the destruction of certain areas and properties of America, the destruction of our souls, our bodies. We don't own anything in those communities to begin with, hardly, and we don't even, it seems, own our own bodies. If we can't say to a policeman, stop, I am not able to breathe, please let me go, we have no ownership that is worth defending. So at that level, I think that the bigger question is, what will America do to make certain that these streets don't burn and that the utter chaos that we are subject to now will be prohibited or at least prevented in the future?